Limgrave is both the first and most important area in Elden Ring. But what if, for some reason, you just weren't able to leave? How much of Elden Ring would you be able to experience? And just how much fun would you be able to have? Today, we'll answer those questions, but before we start, I want to quickly lay out our rules, and while I do, you can watch the creation of the abomination that will be my character. First, and most obviously, I'm not allowed to leave Limgrave once I enter, but I'm also not allowed to go under Limgrave, so no underground exploration. Finally, I must defeat all bosses in Limgrave for this challenge to be considered complete, so let's begin. As soon as I was birthed into the world, I dropped all the weapons that I spawned with, before picking up the finger and then Now that we're actually in Limgrave, the real game has begun, and so I ran straight for the gate front to meet our first character, Melina. She gives me the ability to level up and a whistle to call a magic horse. After meeting her, I grabbed the Lordsworn Greatsword as my first weapon and the Whetstone Blade for using different Ashes of War later on. While I was traveling, I saw this item, and then I heard a voice calling for me. It was coming from the trees, and I reached for my M16 and napalm, but it wasn't there. That was a good thing though, as the voice actually belonged to this guy, our second character, Bach. He was evicted from his house because he looks weird, but I feel a connection to him. I mean, we could be cousins. I'll have to help him out with his bullies later on. I returned to the Church of Ella where I came across none other than our next character, the Smurf Princess Ronnie. She gifted me the spirit calling bell before ghosting away. Now for what I actually came for, our next character, Merchant Kale, who I sold all my recently pillaged loot. I then cleared out the nearby Stormfoot Catacombs and Groveside Cave, scratching 2 bosses off our list. After those 2 dungeons, I headed south along the coast until I found our next character, Bloody Finger Hunter Yura. He warned me about the dragon that dwells nearby on Agil Lake. That's cool and all, but what followed that conversation was a tragedy. There was a bloody crab civil war with many casualties. Not even the children were safe. They killed their children. After grieving, I continued south down the coast, and I grabbed a large club which replaced the Lordsworn Greatsword for a while. I subsequently returned to the area north of Agil Lake, and I collected some Fulgur Bloom, but unfortunately I was unable to obtain internal 3rd degree burns, which sucks. But I did find our next character, Kenneth Height. He wants me to help him by clearing out his fort. But yeah, I'll get to that eventually. Back on the roads of Limgrave, I came across the troll carriage transport, and after taking care of the escort, I stopped the carriage and obtained the Great Axe, which is actually a beast of a weapon. After wandering around a bit, I got to the High Road Cave, but before going inside, I found this cool campsite, which was pretty chill until I realized this dude was straight ganking it.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit.
Pretty sus, but yeah, after that, I checked another boss off the list. Returning to the open world, I came across our next character, D, Hunter of the Dead. He warns me not to visit the nearby Summon Water village. He says that if I value my life, then I should steer clear. But he's assuming 2 things. 1, that I'm able to understand what half those words mean, and 2, that I value my life. With that, I speak to D again, and he calls me dumb, but he also compliments my skill. He then tries to pawn his job off onto me, but yeah, not today, buddy. The next dungeon I poked around was the Mkw Waterer Catacombs, before I headed down the river to where I was invaded by Nedgerist, the Finger Man, and I killed him with the help of Yura. Talking to Yura, he warned me that the bloody fingers will keep coming for me. After that slight inconvenience, I was now able to enter the Mkw Waterer Cave, where I was ambushed by a bald man. He eventually surrenders, and I forgave the bald man with bad eyesight, because he's our next character, and his name is Patches. He tells me to come back later as he needs time to set up his shop. Well, let's go see what Bach is up to while we wait. I found him in the coastal cave where he was bullied again, so I had to stand up for my dog-faced brother, so I went and killed the 2 bosses. And then I committed an unknown number of war crimes as I kinda just blacked out and woke up with blood on my hands and surrounded by the bodies of dead demi-humans. So I returned to Bach and gave him back his sewing needle, so hopefully I can get some unpaid labor out of him. While Bach recovers, I set my sights on the 8th and 9th bosses. The Stone Digger Troll for upgrades, and then the Mad Pumpkinhead under the Waypoint Ruins. But as I looked for my treasure, I instead found our next character, Sellen. I asked who she was, and she told me that she used to be a sorcerer at Raya Lucaria, but then she got back banned for team killing, allegedly. This was quite the sales pitch, so I immediately enrolled in her struggling academy, but I seemed to be her only pupil. I handed her the house scroll that I picked up earlier and made a plan. Maybe if I buy all the spells that she's offering, she'll let me touch her feet. With my secret plan set, I calculated how many runes I'd need and went and killed the poor souls at the gate front until I reached my goal. Then, I rushed to give all my money to Sellen, but I was suddenly attacked by a horse-mounted assassin who thought he could stop me. With him dealt with, I reached Sellen and handed over my blood money. She was happy with the progress I hadn't made and congratulated herself on being a good teacher, but she didn't let me know if I was allowed to touch them. But maybe it's one of those things where she'll get back to me in 7 to 10 business days. While I'm waiting, let's take on the final boss of main Limgrave. No, not the tree sentinel, he's a chump. I'm talking about the flame dragon Agil, and he was a pain in my ass. Well, an entirely self-inflicted pain in the ass because I wanted to showcase how you could summon Bloody Finger Hunter Yura to help in the boss fight, but that's a bad idea as you lose access to your horse. It was at this point exactly when I gave up. The dragon was miles away up on a cliff just staring at me intently. I decided that Yura would be sitting this one out, so I had him tag Torrent back in, and then it was easy. After the fight, I talked to Yura one last time, and he informed me that while consuming dragon flesh will grant me great strength, it will slowly turn me into a furry. But I mean, dragon powers are kind of cool. Sorry for the interruption, I completely forgot to fight or mention Soldier of Godric, but yeah, I killed him. Sorry, back to the video. With the final boss and main Limgrave defeated, I went to see if Patches had set up his shop, and he has, and I purchased Margit's shackle from him because I'm kinky like that. Just as I was about to leave, I saw it. That chest. What's in it? I have to open it, but it was a trap, and it teleported us off to an unknown location. With Patches having sent us off to a dangerous location, we now have one objective: survive. It's really not that hard though, as the bears seem to have the peripheral vision of a mole. After grabbing the local brochure, I find them in a small segment of Limgrave called Mistwood. I continued down the road until I reached the Mistwood Ruins, where I found the Axe Talisman and heard a weird furry mating call, which is strange as I have only seen bears around here. Anyways, I took a look at the map and there are only 2 more locations of interest around here. First is the minor Erd tree that just has a couple of cracked tiers, and the other is Fort Height, which I was supposed to clear out for the idiot we met earlier. I fought through the fort's forward soldiers before facing off with their reserve rodents, and then finally I was face to face with the fort's commander. He was a strong fighter, but he probably should have used his shield. With Fort Height cleared, we're done with Mistwood. Not really much to this place. I returned to Kenneth Height to let him know the news, and he let me know that he'd be setting up a party for me and I should visit him later. Back in main Limgrave, I talked to Kale and mentioned the Howling in Mistwood, and he told me that I should return there and use a secret signal to meet with the man doing the Howling, and that's Blyde. He has a request for me, and that's to find Darrowil, who's located in this Everjail, so let's jump his ass. With the dirty work done, I talked to Blyde, and he rewards me with a somber smithing stone too. Hey, it's been a bit, so let's go see if Kenneth is ready for our visit. Well, that's not good. Hopefully Kenneth isn't a pile of bones by now. Well, he's okay, but I guess that party's a no-go. That leaves nothing left in the lower areas of Limgrave, so now there's only one place left to go. Stormhill is the final segment of Limgrave before reaching Stormvale Castle. It contains the strongest bosses of all of Limgrave, but before we start the final boss rush, there's some things to grab. I start by picking up Golden Val and freeing one of our final characters, Alexander. He's stuck in the ground, so just give him a nice wallop and he's free, and he gives us his meat. Directly across from Alexander is the Death Touch Catacombs, which requires some purification. I then returned to Stormhill Shack as I thought I may have seen someone there earlier, and I was right. This is Rodrika, our second to last character, and she is sad because her friends are dead, but she did give me a spirit jellyfish. Our final character is Bernal, and he sells Ashes of War, and seeing that Sellen is yet to let me know if I can touch her feet, maybe if I purchase all of his products he'll let me touch his feet. I'll really take anything I can get at this point. After buying all of Bernal's items, I returned to the War Master's shack, and suddenly the final boss rush began, and the bell-bearing hunter attacked me with his enchanted sword, but eventually he fell. Then, a deathbird apparates from a ball of ghost flame striking down with its death poker, but once I splashed holy water in his face, it quickly faded away. And finally, a duel with the essence of creation itself, but it was no match for my retardation. With that done, we can return to the first step, and oh, here's our actual last character, Vare, and I gave him the pounding that he deserved. You may have noticed that there's still one boss remaining after my boss rush. I lied. There's one final challenge contained within the bounds of Limgrave, the Fringe Folk Hero's Grave, and the Ulcerated Tree Spirit. So let's do this. Here we are at the end. We've defeated everything that can oppose us. But wait a minute, what's that over there? I don't think that I've been down here. Oh, and there's a chest? What's in it? Oh no. Well, shit.